So today I'm doing the second part of my autumn outfit. I did the blouse last week and I made it in that green shade because I wanted it to match this plaid. It's really cozy, it's cashmere wool, and you can see it's got that green stripe going through it. And I was thinking what I wanted for an autumn outfit, and I thought I want something that I can layer so I can wear it in the autumn with just like that light blouse underneath, but it'll go through into the winter and I can put something cozy underneath. And for the winter I've even been thinking of a wool flannel petticoat, so the more layers the warmer I'll be. I thought I'd quite like a long skirt, so I was thinking that's not really the thing for the 40s, and I chose to take inspiration from none other than Audrey Hepburn, who was very fond, as I am, of the Pinafore dress. So the pattern that I'm going to make today, which I don't have ready, hang on there. The dogs are changing over. The pattern I'm going to make today is, did you seize your chance? Did you seize your chance to elbow your rival out of the way, did you? She did. Is this one, which is one from the 1950s. The square neckline, which I'm very fond of. I am, yes, I'm fond of you too. And a nice full long skirt, so I can get my flannel petticoat underneath in the winter. And it had gave me the opportunity to play with the direction of the checks. So to remind you of the fabric, was this. So I thought what I would do is, there we go, is to, just as they've done here, have the fabric on the bias for the skirt. So with the, oh, I do beg your, I know you're trying to get your face on the front of the camera. Is that better? Oh no, you're huffing into the micro. I know you're huffing into the microphone. No huffers, no puffers. Yes, so to have the skirt on the bias and the bodice on the straight of grain with that nice square neckline. It allows this sort of layering, like I can wear a kind of cotton blouse or a nice warm jumper underneath. And I'm going to make it on my hand crank Singer sewing machine, and I thought I'd show you too a little bit more about how it works today. So once I was happy with my mock-up, I cut out the pattern pieces and stitched the darts in the bodice front. It has darts both at the waist and at the bust. And then it was time to thread up my hand crank Singer sewing machine. It has a shuttle bobbin, which is a less familiar thing to people these days, but it's quite easy to thread up. As you can see, it's just kind of pulling this little piece of the machine in and out, and then you put it in the bobbin case and pull the thread to make sure that the thread comes out anti-clockwise, and then pull the thread down through the crevice. Just hold the top with your finger, pull it down through that crevice and then around that screw and then up again, and magically you see the thread appear through that central gap in the bobbin case, just showing you where the thread is now coming from, that sort of middle hole in the case. And that's it, it's now ready to be put into the machine, and then replace the lid obviously. And then it's time to thread up the machine, which is really simple. There are only a few little steps that you can see me doing here. And then once the machine is threaded up, just to do a little stitch to pull up the bobbin thread. Then I actually read the instructions and found out that the bodice, rather than having a facing, has a lining. So the only lining fabric I had around was this beige lining, which is fine. And Pixie, you can see, is helping me cut it out. The bodice definitely needed to be lined, and there was also an option to do a kind of lining for the skirt, but I don't have enough lining fabric, so I'm just cutting out enough for the bodice and for the skirt yoke. And you can see that I was assisted all the way through the cutting out process. Pixie loves to find that you're suddenly down at her level. So then I pin the bodice pieces together, right side to right side, all the way down the right side and just to the notch on the left side because there'll be a zip. And then the lining is pinned and stitched in the same way. And these machines don't reverse, but all you have to do is pick up the presser foot and turn the fabric and stitch back in the same direction to finish. And then the bodice and the bodice lining are pinned and stitched together around the neckline and at the side seams, leaving an opening on the left for the zip and at the shoulders, because as you can see here, the shoulders are left open so you can turn the bodice right side out. And then I went to get some more thread, and this is what I found. And then I tacked the lining in place around the armholes of the bodice. And it's already stitched at the neck. And then I turn the bodice right side out through the gap in that shoulder seam and then just slip stitched the lining down. And then I stitched interfacing onto the skirt pocket flaps and stitched the lining of the skirt yoke into place too, and just showing you the pattern to remind you of that skirt yoke, which has its points into the centre, and the pocket flaps are just on either side of the skirt yoke and they're caught into that seam. Then I'm snipping the corners of the pocket flaps just so that I can make sure they have a nice sharp corner when I turn them right side out. And as you can see, I've been careful with the design of the plaid to make it symmetrical. And then I'm pinning the pocket flaps onto the yoke before I also put the skirt pieces on, and then the pocket flap will be caught in the seam that I just pointed out and then turned like that to create the flap on the skirt. And as you can see, I've tried really hard with the pattern matching. And then the centre front seam at the skirt, I've obviously been really careful with the pattern matching there too. So this is how the skirt looks now, with the lining on the yoke and the pocket flaps caught into the yoke skirt seam, and the pieces of the skirt which were cut on the bias pattern matched really carefully down that centre front seam. And the pocket flaps are then pressed downwards. So once the flaps are pressed down, this is what the skirt front looks like. And then the bodice is pinned to the front to be stitched, and the side seams are pinned and stitched at the same time, just making sure to match the plaid. So with the bodice lining right side out, it's slip stitched along the waistline. and that's what it looks like around the neck edge. And to insert the zip before starting on the applique, which I based on a brooch and also my handsome treacle, I cut the applique shapes out of felt and I'm going to embroider over them. So I left off the ribbon, the green ribbon around the neck of the dog brooch, because I'm going to embroider that later. I did one large Scotty dog for the front of the dress and two smaller ones to go on the pocket flaps, and I'm going to have them facing each other, and that's what they should look like once the embroidery is done. So I cut them out of the felt. So I used embroidery thread and a stem stitch to create that slightly curly feeling of the fur, and for the collar I used a straight back stitch just to create a bit of contrast between the curly fur and the collar. I left a gap around the edge because I'm going to join the dogs to the dress with blanket stitch, and my last thing was to give each of the eyes a black bead centre. And then it was time to make the belt. For more on belt making, do watch my video, 7 belts for 7 vintage dresses. For this belt, I found a nice square green vintage buckle, which I think will complement the dress perfectly. And with that stitched in place, the dress was done. And here is the dress, and the skirt, having been cut on the bias, drapes really nicely and it has lots of swoosh factor to it. I'm wearing the brooch with it, which was the inspiration for the embroidery, and the pocket flaps are kind of cute, I think. And yes, lots of swishing is possible in it, and it's very warm and comfortable to wear too. So I'm really thrilled with my dress. It's really super cozy to wear and I feel kind of comfortable in the blouse from last week's video, and the kind of puffy sleeves, which I don't know if you can see with Raisin Rabbit leaning heavily on my shoulder, and I've got the little brooch that inspired I'm being made to promise that I'll do a border collie dress. I'll do a border collie dress one day. So next week I'm going to make a little beret or hat to go with this dress. So I hope you'll join me then for more sewing adventures. And in the meantime, if you can like and hopefully even subscribe. Thank you for watching us. Bye.